Hi, it's Bill and Melissa, and we are the Wandering Highlanders. This summer, my wife and I rented a cabin on the Villavie Odyssey, and we took an epic 17-night cruise across the Pacific from Mexico to Hawaii.
In this episode,
we hit Oahu for 2 days.
And how was it? We drive by our old neighborhood in Pearl Harbor.
And most importantly, what's the first food that we ate when we got off the ship? Yeah, and what was it like after being gone from Oahu for 25 years?
Let's find out.
All right, in this episode, the crossing is over and we arrive in Oahu. After 8 days, the entire ship was abuzz as we started to see land. First, we saw Coco Head, then we saw Diamond Head and Waikiki, and then we pulled into the main port in Honolulu.
During breakfast, we sat next to the windows and watched as we pulled into the port. It was surreal.
It really was. When we got there, we had to do a brief customs or border patrol type of inspection. It was okay, but it really ate a lot of our time. We'll talk about that later. All right, we are leaving the Odyssey, leaving the ship. Pretty darn amazing, if I do say so. From there, we Ubered over to the airport and we rented a Jeep. All right, so we are at Honolulu International Airport to get our rental car. Achievement unlocked, rental starting. Now, I wanted a convertible. We never had a convertible when we lived there. And we wanted to see if we liked driving a Jeep Wrangler.
Because we are considering a full-time RV lifestyle, and our question is what kind of a toad do we drive? And Bill, every time we see an RV drive by that has a toad attached, he'll say, "There goes a Jeep." So we decided to rent a Jeep Wrangler for our fun trip around the island.
Had to see if we liked it or not, right? And what better place to do that than Oahu?
And we even got to pick the color. It was bright red.
Mm-hmm. So from there, we drove by our old housing area at Halimoku. I served at Pearl from 1995 to 1999. This was our home when we were aged 20 to 24 years old.
It was a place in base housing between the main gate of Pearl and the Makalapa Gate.
Housing is so hard to get when you're especially young enlisted in the military.
Yeah.
So we were just happy to get any base housing at all.
I was stationed at Kunia, which was a military intelligence base that was underneath the pineapple field, 3 stories underground. Having one car, Bill would walk or ride his bike into Pearl Harbor, and I would drive.
We'd also been separated for 9 months from the time that we got married.
Yeah.
We got married in March.
Yeah, and so after not having seen my new husband from basically
mid-April,
and I didn't see him again until the beginning of December. And it was probably one of the most difficult, gut-wrenching moments of my life. And so when we got there, we only had a month together before he would leave again. And so just the fact that we got a first house together was, I didn't care.
And it was great, but let's just say that housing at that time of the Navy's history wasn't great. Halimoku was this pre-World War II cinder block housing. It still had bullet holes from the Japanese attack. Like our neighborhood had effects from the Japanese attack.
Picture pre-World War II housing. We had cockroaches that were, and we called them the B-52 bombers. What we learned was better to have the big cockroaches than the babies, because when we first moved in, there were baby cockroaches in the house, and I almost lost my lunch.
Yeah.
But I think the honeymoon period was there. We ended up with 3 cats And the cats kept our house
Bug-free.
bug-free. We would go downstairs in the morning, and all I would see is a cockroach leg on the floor.
Because the cats had snacked on them overnight. And then a lot of times we'd walk out and there'd be a little gecko up in the ceiling with a little nub where his tail used to be. And he'd be chittering at us.
Bloody stump.
And our cats would be up there chittering at him because they want him for breakfast.
Yeah.
And, he's just scurrying along the ceiling. And so that was just normal life.
We were there for 3.5 years, I think. But then
There was a new Navy secretary named John Dalton, and they came out to Hawaii. He came out with his wife. And I'm going to give a super shout out to her because she changed the island for the Navy for the better. She was given a tour and she saw the Air Force Base first, right? Because, they're going to fly in there to Hickam. And of course, Air Force, great. They take care of their people really well. And then she's like, well, I want to see the Navy housing.
not just Navy housing, I want to see where our lower enlisted families are living.
Yeah. So she goes driving by the Navy Exchange and she's like, oh, is the base housing over by the slum? And they're like, no, it is the slum.
They took her to Ala Moana Terrace. It was in worse condition than ours
Ours was tolerable.
because of the cinder block.
Yeah, the cinder block made ours better. We didn't have the termite problems and the falling apart problems. This place was wrecked.
It was a dump.
And she got back to her husband that night. She was in tears and she said, you're going to fix this and you're going to fix it now.
Yeah.
And they did.
They ended up spending $100 million to renovate base housing. And then they built new housing, and then we were moved out of our house and into one of the new units, which was
Gorgeous.
gorgeous. We only got there to be there for a couple of months before we left the island. But it wasn't nice enough for us to want to stay in the Navy.
Right. They have done such a tremendous job of making base housing nice. There's nowhere near enough base housing, and it's still a big, long-time problem, but at least they're not living in termite-infested rat traps.
So after we finished
Driving Memory Lane.
driving memory lane through our old neighborhood, we went to an old familiar hangout in Pearl City. We were very hungry, and the restaurant we wanted to visit was closed, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
So we went to L&L Drive-In.
There's undoubtedly better plate lunch on Oahu than L&L. I love me a good mom and pop shop, but L&L is a solid franchise chain, and it really does offer most of our favorites.
It was a taste of aloha, a taste of Hawaii, and really it was like a taste of home.
Yeah, we just miss that taste of aloha, and especially plate lunch. So we're going to ask, what is plate lunch? Well, you start off with 2 scoops of sticky rice and add your protein. We went super big on our order because we wanted to taste all of our favorites.
Probably a little too big.
So what did we get?
Well, I ordered chicken katsu, which is
It's a deep
fried chicken Japanese style.
Yeah, I fell in love with chicken katsu when I first went to Japan. It's a Japanese breaded chicken breast, deep fried, and the tonkatsu sauce is a barbecue sauce. Really, really tasty. And to me, it's just a taste of my time in the Navy, whether Japan or Hawaii. We then got teriyaki chicken.
And barbecue short ribs. But
and the barbecue beef.
in my opinion, the piece de resistance was the macaroni salad.
Really, there's nothing like Hawaiian mac salad. Anytime that we go to L&L or any other Hawaiian place, we usually order extras of it because it is just such a delicacy.
So after having a delicious meal at L&L Drive-In, we headed to Pearl Harbor.
Now, I'm going to do a deep dive on those in a separate breakout video. I have too much information. It'll upset this video, so we'll watch that later. Just let you know, you're going to get a submariner's take on what it was like to go to the Submarine Museum, the Missouri, and the Pacific Aviation Museum. More to come.
So we headed to the Pearl Harbor Museum, which featured the USS Arizona, the Bowfin, and the Missouri. It also had a beautiful museum, the Pacific Aviation Museum, that had all the history. It even featured one of Bill's old positions where he'd worked, and he kind of fanboyed.
I did. So one of the problems that we had is all of those museums closed at 5 p.m. This is part of my gripe that I've talked about in other videos, is the Odyssey didn't stay long enough, especially on Oahu. We had 2 days. We didn't get off the boat after customs inspections till about noonish. And then, 30 minutes drive over to the airport, get a rental car. I don't think that we got to the museums until something like 2 p.m. And we didn't realize that they closed at 5.
We also, I don't think we took into consideration how popular it would be.
Mm-hmm.
There was no parking. We parked in a dirt parking lot off the very far end.
Yeah, we were even worried about just getting towed, but we had to do it because we spent the $100 or whatever
Per person.
to see all the, $100 a person to see all 3 things. We're like, we're going to do this. And it was our only time. So this is my gripe, is we just didn't have enough time to do that in one full day. Plus the 2 partial days would really be a much better way. And I'm just going to tell anybody, if you're traveling to Oahu, if you fly out to Hawaii, Oahu needs like 5 days. Then you can do a few more days at the other islands. But 2 days on Oahu is a travesty because there's too much to see. And it cut into our experience tremendously.
But it was a deep dive memory lane for sure.
Yeah.
When we finished at
Pearl?
When we finished at Pearl, we decided we still had some time before we had to get back to the ship. So we drove up to the North Shore, drove by my old base, and
How did it feel to see your old base?
surreal. I was 20 when we were there, and 21 and 22, and I'm 50 now. That's like 3 lifetimes ago. There were some familiar things, and we didn't want to stop and gawk just because it is a secured base and we didn't want to be chased off. It did hit memories, or member berries, as your little sister used to say, driving in, and just my time there and the angst that I felt being 21 and all the things.
I'm not saying there's PTSD. I'm just saying that it really was fascinating. You smell the air, you're there, and our time in the Navy was so monumentally important in the creation of who we are, significant who we are as adults. And getting back to see both of us, I don't even think she was expecting the levels of catharsis that she would process through, and or the layers of bad memories that it brought up as well.
And yes, driving through there sharpened some of my more bitter memories.
Fair enough. So from there, it was almost sunset time, and we drove up to the North Shore to try to see the sunset, and we were going to try to get some food out in town. But we went into this fish restaurant, and maybe that was our first time really...
That's the chicken restaurant.
Oh, the one with all the chickens in the parking lot. Is that what
Yes,
you mean?
we had a beautiful view of the beach that had the sunset. It was an open air restaurant, and it was very fancy, and it was very expensive. And this was just a lesson that I reminded Bill of. If he wanted me to pick the restaurant, then he shouldn't complain about the restaurant that I picked, because he complained. It was too noisy. It was too expensive.
More importantly, I think it was a sticker shock.
Yeah.
Now, we knew, going in that Hawaii was more expensive. I don't think we had done the research to see
No.
just how expensive compared to the mainland it was. Now, the staff was great. It was really beautiful. It was wonderful, but it was just well outside of our price range.
We ordered a little appetizer. We got some water, and we sat there, and I said, now run across the street and go take some pictures of the sunset with your camera. And in the meantime, I'm watching all of these baby chicks and roosters wandering in and out from among people's feet, pecking at the crumbs. And I thought, welcome to Hawaii.
Welcome back to Hawaii. It was pretty funny. So that night, we were in a conundrum. Where are we going to park our Jeep? And it's difficult to park in Honolulu on a good day.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more interesting when you're on a cruise ship. So we ended up parking at what used to be called Restaurant Row. There was a parking garage. It was a little bit pricey, overnight parking and all, but it was a super easy walk. And it was as safe and secure as we could get. So we did that, went back to the boat, crashed hard, and started day 2.
He roused me out of bed before breakfast and coffee. Like, he was like, we are paying for our time. We have a limited amount, so we're going to get up with the crack of dawn so that we're spending money on this. We're going to get our money's worth.
Mm-hmm.
So he rolled me out of bed and we were out the door before any breakfast. He's like, we'll just get it on the road.
Yeah, kind of at the ass crack of dawn, which we don't ever get up for. And we love our breakfasts. So it was a little bit painful getting up and taking off like that.
Now, driving through Honolulu and then some of the nicer neighborhoods up towards Hanauma Bay brought back memories from a whole other kind. We had been involved in Amway back in the day.
The bad old days.
Back in the day. And a lot of our association and our time was kind of revolved around those neighborhoods. We would drive through and dream build and look at some of the beautiful houses. And so that drive sparked that kind of a discussion of, do you remember?
Lots of memory lanes. And then Puna Beach, we didn't have time, or Hanauma Bay.
Hanauma Bay, and it was closed for construction.
Yeah.
What was it?
We couldn't go there, and we didn't have time for it anyways. But Hanauma Bay was one of my favorite places to go snorkeling. Now, it's gotten so popular since the mid-90s that now I believe that you actually have to do reservations.
Stream of consciousness about what this has been.
Wow. Wanderers, we are taking a drive around the outside of the island, around the
Northeast side, the windward side.
We're taking a drive around the island. And we have opted to use a Jeep Wrangler as our mode of transportation because we'd never driven one before. What a perfect opportunity. And we're considering it as a towed for our RV. But look at this. There's no bad angles. There's no bad pictures.
Look out the right side, look out the left side. It's all beautiful.
It's all beautiful. I think that was, for me, that was the hardest thing, was seeing all of our favorite places during the day, tourist and commercialized.
Yeah, that's going to become a big part as we go around all these places. Yes, it used to be touristy, but now it's like touristy ramped up to 11.
Yeah.
We really saw this as we hit spots like the Blowhole, and we got some great photos that I'll be showing you. And Blowhole is just a really neat thing where there's like a natural lava tube. The surf goes in and it blows up, and it's a great place. Well, turnovers,
It's a lookout point.
It's a lookout point.
You stop, you get out, you take pictures, you marvel, you climb over the little short wall that they have, and you climb down to some places and take pictures.
But what was the most amusing part?
One thing we did not anticipate, and that would be the van loads and bus loads of tourists. We've encountered them almost every spot along the way. And there are hordes of them, hundreds, droves. And it is, one is like all Japanese, another one is all American. It's fascinating. I mean, we're touristing. I'm trying to be a low-key tourist, but imagine this massive tour bus pulling up into the parking lot, poof, as the brakes stop, and the door opens, and then, and what cracked me up is we had one group off to one side, and their tour guide was the local brada, who had his little wreath on and his little drum, and he's giving them backstory and culture. And then you had another one who was acting like he was hurting children, and he was like, okay, go over here and take these pictures over there. And it was just, Bill and I looked at each other and we thought, let's take our pictures and then get the heck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
and try to get ahead of the tour buses.
Yeah, we really raced ahead of them. And once we got outside of their schedule, it got a little bit better.
Kind of.
Kind of.
At this point, I was like, listen, I am done touristing. I need food now.
So we found this beautiful place called Cinnamon's in Kailua town. It was so yummy.
Yes, I said. She said, well, how can I help you? I said, I need coffee.
I need coffee and I need food.
I need
now.
food.
And really fun place. So I got a local delicacy, one of my favorites called Loco Moco. 2 scoops of sticky rice, go figure, Hawaii, and then 2 fried eggs and a patty, like a ground beef patty covered in brown gravy. It sounds gross, but oh, yum.
And then for me, I ordered the pancakes with papaya syrup. Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
So after a very yummy breakfast, then going through Kailua, isn't that where old
Oh, Magnum PI.
Magnum PI
Mhm.
was filmed? And what we sadly discovered is that the
The mansion.
beautiful plantation mansion that it was filmed at has been leveled and filled with housing and commercial and
I
industrial.
want to say there's a KFC there or something like that from
Yeah.
what the research that we did.
Yeah.
So it was really, really sad. We love the windward side of the island. When we lived there,
Oh.
I played paintball all the time at Bellows Air Force Station.
Yeah.
We went to Bellows Beach all the time. And we just love that, the wet, beautiful, the views.
Yeah.
And
Windward side.
windward side is just pretty.
And we get through Kailua, we stopped off at the Kualoa Beach Park, where I told Bill that I had to go swimming. I had my bathing suit on. I was ready. So we stopped and I was able to get in the water.
I had wanted to take photos of this place called Chinaman's Hat. Now, we understand, that they're trying not to call it that as much now. It's called Moloki'i.
No, it's Mokoli'i.
Mokoli'i.
Mokoli'i is the Hawaiian word for little lizard, and
Yes, that's right.
that there's Hawaiian history there.
hmm
But it looked like a Chinaman's hat, and so that's what locals call it.
And that's what everybody called it back in the day when we lived there. And beautiful place, very scenic. So we got some great photos, had a wonderful time getting wet and watching the tourists get their drone photos. So that was amusing.
Yeah.
What do we do after that?
So I said, hey, let's keep going and see if we can get ahead of this tourist. But the most amusing part was the mystery machine from Scooby-Doo. Apparently, it was a van that you could rent, and I was expecting a younger couple, but it was an older, they were an older Asian couple that were
60s,
touristing.
70s, Japanese-looking couple.
It was a beautifully done car, and I could not resist taking pictures. So we were stuck right behind it.
Yeah.
And they suddenly stopped and turned into this little space, and I was like, oh, where are they going? It was a little macadamia nut farm, and I was like, we're going.
Yep.
So we pulled in, dodged roosters, dodged tourists. Oh my gosh, it was full of people,
Yeah.
shoulder to shoulder.
Mhm.
But we got to sample the coffee. We bought some fun little magnets. We
Got our trinkets.
got some macadamia nuts, and we hit the road again.
Now, I'm going to say that little shop was pretty. It was fun. It's always good. If you go to Hawaii, you've got to try Mac Nuts. You really do need to try the local kind coffee. And because the weather is so different on the windward side, for me, it was really neat walking out into sort of the rainforest. And to kind of put it in perspective, where we were at, if you've seen Jurassic Park, or just about any movie since about 1990 that show the jungle, it's probably on Kualoa Ranch. So that's the area that we were at. And again, just among our favorite places. And so that little touristy shop was a fun place just to taste or sample. But because we were really short on time, we had to get moving as much as we wanted to stop and smell the plumeria.
Gorgeous, incredibly gorgeous view. Wow.
How has it felt?
Surreal. It's a whole different, it's grown. Beautiful. The homeless camps along part of the beach area was sad because They are dirty. And I think we drove through a really depressed part of the island in terms of poverty, lack of pride and ownership. And we talked to the waitress at our restaurant, and I asked her about the homeless population, about the camps, and she just shook her head and said, it's getting really bad, but it's bad everywhere. She said, be careful so you don't get mugged. And I thought, well, that's just kind of sad. Anyway, it's been really fun. Really, really fun. I got to get wet.
In the ocean.
In the ocean. So we were like, all right, let's go to the North Shore. Let's see if we can get some shave ice at our favorite little shave ice shop called Aoki's. And in my head, I still had the memory of the sleepy little North Shore town with its quirky shops and this tiny little hole-in-the-wall shave ice place that made its own syrup and was absolutely amazing. However,
when we got there
was so much traffic.
It was
not a sleepy little town.
No. That beautiful, sleepy, quiet Wahila, North Shore, chilled, laid back surfer town.
The North Shore with its barrel waves that are famous for surfing.
I couldn't believe it. It was so packed. There was no parking. There was no nothing. Wall-to-wall people, wall-to-wall cars. We couldn't stop to get shave ice.
We couldn't stop to park. I was like, too many people. Keep going.
Plug out.
Take a picture. It'll last longer.
Yeah. And boom. So we got out of there as fast as the bumper-to-bumper traffic would let us. But then we couldn't leave without some fresh Dole Whip.
Now, the Dole Plantation is a tourist destination.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point, both our budget and our patience and our time was short.
Mm-hmm.
So we opted for the cheaper version on the right-hand side. You know, Google.
Yeah, thanks, Google. Google Maps for the win.
And we stopped in there and we walked around their little museum. We took some pictures and we got some Dole Whip. Pineapple mixed with coconut. Oh my gosh, it was delicious.
Yep. So good. So from there, we zipped on down, turned in our rental car, and then we Ubered over to the Aloha Tower Marketplace.
Another change. Probably one of the more shocking ones for us. In our time, Aloha Tower Marketplace was the place to go for shopping, for tourism, for...
When you had family in from out of town, there was Restaurant Row there was Aloha Tower Marketplace. That was the place that you took people for meals.
For sure.
It was a destination.
It was a destination, and it had so changed. Again, I think it was due to COVID that it had been turned into a university.
Chaminade, or some university has basically taken over all the shops. And like, we were floored.
And even the Aloha Tower, which is sort of like an iconic
historical
landmark, was under construction. So we just kind of wandered around, and then we were there because we were meeting an old friend. He was probably from the very beginning. We met him when we were playing paintball. He was a paintball owner. He was the one that was involved in Amway, and we just connected with him and stayed friends with him throughout all the years.
Yeah, one of our best friends when we were in Hawaii, and he owned the field at Bellows, and when I would play paintball, we would just talk story all the time. So we had to catch up because we hadn't seen each other literally in 25 years. So it was wonderful to catch up.
Really good to see him.
And he and the people that we got to know, one of the things is the Aloha spirit. Like, you'll see, I'm always wearing an Aloha shirt of some kind or another. This has just become literally part of us.
I think the family Ohana really gave us a bigger community. And, you know, we had our experiences with Amway, both positive and negative, but it was the people that really made our time on the island and cemented our memory, because our community wasn't necessarily based around the military.
Yeah.
We really tried to get involved in the local community, and
like our local church.
So we made sure that our community was not just all military. We made sure that we were involved in the culture, because that's what being in different places is all about, is getting to know the people, trying the food, going to the places that most tourists won't go, although now they're there.
Even our little hole-in-the-wall places are now overcome. And so, like, was that the thoughts of getting back to Oahu? I suppose that's where it's like a mixed bag.
I mean, you know things are going to change. It was 25 years and 30, we've been married 30 years and we spent the first 4 years of our marriage there. And so our memories are obviously going to have a different a different reality than what is there. Honolulu, Pearl City, it was noisy, crowded, full of people, and very expensive. It was great to go down memory lane, but I would say I wouldn't do it again. If I chose to go to Hawaii, that's not the island I would go to first.
And for me, what I would say, I want my kids to experience Pearl Harbor. I want them
Yes.
to,
That's important.
and really I would say, if you care about our country's history, if you really want to dive into this, but I would take my kids, and my preference would be about 5 days on Oahu. But I would probably try to stay more on the western side of the island, not stay in Waikiki. Like to Waikiki if you really want that uber touristy type of thing. But there is so much more to Hawaii than Honolulu.
I missed being able to go to the museums again. That was one of my favorite things that I would do when Bill was gone for months at a time. I had a couple of friends and we would go to all the museums, and the Hawaiian culture, the Hawaiian religions, the history, and it is absolutely amazing. It's beautiful. All the local places. I'm thinking of the feathered capes and the luau.
Oh yeah.
We
So
didn't do a luau.
I love what we were able to do with the Villa V there, but it's almost like if you have your very favorite foods on a buffet, but you're only allowed to get very small plates and you have a very limited time at the buffet and then you've got to go.
Or you could say, here are all of your favorite foods, but you only have a half an hour to eat.
Right.
Go.
For other folks looking at doing a cruise around the Hawaiian Islands. So let's say you're talking about doing like a 7 or 8 day cruise around the islands. You fly to Hawaii, you're going to do the cruise, and then eventually you're going to fly back. Don't just do the couple days with each time that you hit the port. That just doesn't do it justice. Now, I have told people from the time that we lived there, don't ever go to Hawaii if you're going to spend less than 10 days.
Mm.
And
You spend all that money, all that time, all that planning, all that dreaming to go. Really stretch it just a couple of days and take the time to breathe it in, to experience it.
and to slow down.
There's so much to experience and to see there. It's just wonderful.
Yeah. And so my recommendations are get further off the beaten path, but no matter what, see the major sites at Pearl. Take a skipping glance through Waikiki if you need it.
If you're going to do the Pearl Harbor Museum, get there first thing in the morning.
Right. Very first
There
thing.
is so much to see, experience, and do that it will take you all day.
It will. And then from there, Oahu is a beautiful island, but as you're going to see in our next couple videos, the other islands have their own charm, and each island is so completely, utterly unique. And we are going to be diving into that as the series goes on.
Thank you for sticking with us to the end of this video. We're so glad that you're a part of our
Community and our
Community.
growing community. Thank you
Yes.
guys.
and experiencing this adventure with us. So we will see you.
On the journey.
That was terrible, wasn't it?
No, that was totally fine.
Okay.
I think it's good enough to close
All right.
it up so I can actually edit this.
Okay.